As Dr. Githai made her way towards the medical bay, the sound of her footsteps reverberated down the empty hallway of the Star Treader. The floor was made of metal. She was hoping to get a full night's sleep before they arrived at their homeworld, and they were about to enter the last hyperlane of their voyage. She had intended to get some sleep before they arrived. At first, she had anticipated that there would be some kind of medical problem when she received a call from Her Highness, Princess Silvani, which put an end to that hope. The planet HFY, which was the homeworld of the Kristnelv, was, in comparison to the other inhabited worlds in Alliance territory, the one that was the least ideal to host Van Eyre and his companions for an extended amount of time. During the time that Her Highness was engaged in the process of drafting the new treaty, appropriate preventive steps had, of course, been taken, and they had been treated appropriately as guests. However, there was never a zero danger, and there were instances of illnesses that took a number of days to fully manifest themselves. However, it would appear that this was not the case. No further details about the issue had been provided by Her Highness. All that was communicated was that they were facing a predicament, and that she should arrive without delay. As soon as she stepped into the medical bay, she was confronted with a surprising lack of people. Not a single person was present. Not only that, but there was also a distinct absence of the movable bed. Could it be the problem? No. The statement was completely illogical. First and foremost, she typically utilized the beds that were provided on board in order to provide medical care to patients. In situations where an emergency patient was unable to make their way to the medical bay on their own, the mobile bed was designed to be used. There was such a crisis, wasn't there? Nevertheless, why do you call her here? Physician. Before she could continue to become lost in her thoughts, she was interrupted by someone who shouted out to her. Upon returning her attention to the entrance, she became aware of one of the princess's maids. Please accept my apologies if we have kept you waiting, but the findings we have obtained have brought about some unanticipated issues. The results. The attendant moved to the side, making room for 3 of the guards to push the mobile bed into the space. While the 3 of them were working together to accomplish anything, she was unable to tell, and she did not really care about it. The fact that something was lying on the hospital bed was the entirety of her attention at that moment. Its shape was vaguely reminiscent of their own race, the Van Eyre, with the exception of a missing pair of arms being present. In addition to this, it was significantly shorter, measuring at most 2/3 of her own height, and its frame appeared to be very delicate, almost fragile. The fact that the surface of its body looked to be smooth and soft led Githai to the conclusion that, in contrast to them, it was an endoskeletal race. It was dressed in a straightforward white shirt and long blue slacks, which, by Van Eyre standards, was an excessive quantity of clothing. Additionally, it wore protective clothing and battle armor, not including the fact that it was wearing battle armor. It is possible that Githai served as the personal physician of Her Highness, yet due to the fact that she was always there with the princess whenever she departed from the planet, she had also accumulated a substantial amount of knowledge regarding xenobiology. Although she was familiar with all of the extraterrestrial races that her people had interacted with, she was unable to find a single one that even closely resembled this diminutive creature. Or might it be? Is there a new species of extraterrestrial being? She finished with a gasp of surprise. The cashier gave a slight nod. There is a good chance. Where exactly did you discover it? We were able to pick up a peculiar signal. To begin, he began to explain. The code did not match any of the typical ones. The operators, however, came to the conclusion that it was some kind of distress call because of the fact that it was repeated. Her Majesty charged us with conducting an investigation. What appeared to be an escape pod was discovered by us. At the time that we discovered it, the only person inside was the alien, and it was already unconscious. We examined the air within the pod, and it appeared to be similar to the air that we breathe. Considering that it is still alive, it would appear that this is the case. In spite of the fact that we intended to establish typical first contact protocols, Her Highness requested that we first make sure that everything was in order, which is where you come in. Together with the guards, the attendant made their way toward the entrance. The regular sterilization procedure has previously been carried out. Check its condition once it has regained consciousness, and then make a call to the bridge so that the princess can meet it. And exercise caution. As the guards left, one of them growled in disapproval. In spite of appearances, that gadget is quite heavy. Githai chose to take no notice of him and shut the door. As her excitement over the new alien species grew to the point where she could no longer contain it, she began to experience a dizzy feeling. Furthermore, she would be the first person to investigate it, not to mention the fact that this was the first fresh encounter in any number of generations. If the princess were to bring it home, even the nobles who have been critical of her would kneel down and prostrate themselves before her. Despite the fact that Githai was not very skilled in politics, she was well aware of how advantageous it would be for them to be the first to build a satisfactory connection with this new species. Okay, let's go. It's enough. Githai, how about you? You are an expert in your field. The physician shifted her focus upon the extraterrestrial being. Due to the fact that there was not much else she could do before it woke up, the area of its thorax gently elevated and sank, which was most likely a breathing motion. For the purpose of removing some cells off one of the exposed arms, Githai took out a sampling card and carefully scraped them off, taking care not to accidentally damage the fragile organism. The bed, which was purposefully constructed to be larger than others so that it could also be used by people of larger ethnicities, gave the impression that it was even smaller than it actually was. It was necessary for such a delicate life form to originate from a relatively tranquil Earth, free of the majority of things that her type would regard to be a threat, in order for it to have survived long enough to reach the age of space travel. As a result of the analysis, it was determined that it was a carbon and water-based living form. Hence, there was nothing out of the usual about it, with the possible exception of the high volume of water. Perhaps the individual was of an amphibian ancestry. After a period of time, the small body began to show signs of movement, and the extraterrestrial eventually opened its eyes. The animal was surprised when it spotted the doctor, and it immediately jumped up, only to appear to become dizzy and grasp its head. This was a reaction that Githai had more or less anticipated taking place. In order to demonstrate that she did not represent any danger, she opened her forehands with great care and showed that they were empty. It appeared as though the extraterrestrial was picking up on the gesture. It continued to be watchful, but it was no longer in a panic. The following step was for her to remove a thin collar, place it on the mattress, and then point it at her own throat. Following a few ticks, the extraterrestrial gave her a skeptical look, but then proceeded to put it on. "Do you realize what I'm saying?" the physician inquired. A nod was given by the extraterrestrial. Indeed, the tone of its speech was quite gentle, almost subdued. "There is no such thing as you." While Githai laughed, "Taking into consideration your point of view, I suppose that we are the aliens. That is just incredible." The doctor was taken aback for a brief minute as the extraterrestrial creature jumped up and crawled over the mattress. "These are aliens. It's true that aliens exist. Which of the others are there? Everything comes one after the other." In an effort to calm it down, the doctor repeated his words. She was taken aback by the intense enthusiasm that enveloped her. "Vaneri is the name given to our race. This is Githai, my name. Because I am a medical professional, I would like to examine you so that I can not only gain a better understanding of your species, but also verify that you are in good health. You will then be able to meet the remaining individuals." "There you go. I am sorry. I grew a little bit excited. By the way, my name is Nadine when you ask. The term human defines my race." The physician then nodded. "If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it if you could tell me more about yourself. What about sexual activity?" The pink tone of the alien's face became a little bit darker on the face. "It is not yet the case. But wait, how is it even possible?" "My apologies, you mean. Because I am a female, we are both dioecious. Again, this is a quite typical event. Are you of the opinion that, in terms of both your physical appearance and your abilities, you are a typical example of your race? For the women who are at least my age, the answer is yes. I engage in some physical activity in order to maintain my health. To put it another way, my capabilities are probably a little bit higher than normal. In addition, to the best of my knowledge, I am in good health. I was at least, before Creo was born. It's Creo. As a matter of fact, she may ask for that at a later time, one after the other. More than once, the physician nodded and then took some notes. In that case, I would appreciate it if you could stand up so that I may take some measures. It was during this time that Nabeen began to speak, while Githai turned around to prepare her instruments. As a side note, where precisely are we located? Our royal embassy is housed on this vessel, which is known as the Star Treader. Oh my goodness, it seems to be significant. Indeed, it is. As a matter of fact, the Star Treader is the ship that belongs to Her Highness, Princess Silvani, who will come and greet you once we have completed our work. The expression on Maydoun's face changed. Hold on. It seems that you are implying that not only did we discover aliens, but I will also meet their princess. Wow, today is going to be the best day of my life. Another laugh came from Githai. The fact that the alien girl seemed so optimistic about her circumstances, if not downright cheerful, was something that she was relieved to see, considering that the contrary would have been just as rational. Then you are familiar with the operation of scales, right? Every time I step on them, the screen will tell you how much I weigh. He gave a slight nod. When we talk about weight, I was wondering whether there was something wrong with your digital gravity. On average, I have a lighter feeling. Is that true? It seems to make sense to me. It is comparable to the gravity that exists on our home planet, which is roughly average in comparison to the gravity that exists on other planets that are known to be inhabited. As she acknowledged, the small extraterrestrial cocked her head to the side. In such case, I would say that Earth is a little bit over average. In any case, if the scales are designed using your gravity as a consideration, then everything ought to be all right. There was a loud cracking sound that could be heard as Nadine was stepping on the plate. Despite the fact that the display displayed nothing but an error message, the bewildered physician stared at it. Is it possible that that silly thing actually broke? I am truly sorry. It was impossible for the physician not to laugh. Was the tiny girl truly under the impression that she had broken it? Be not concerned. Not you, by any means. That item was designed for races that are significantly larger than you. A maximum of 500 vase can be measured by it. I believe that it is simply old. You didn't hear the sound that it made, did you? Anyway, I ask that you stand up straight. When questioned, Nadine complied. As the physician scanned her, her head came dangerously close to touching Githai's thorax. It is 282 lines. Even if that doesn't tell me anything if I don't know your weight, we can weigh each other once we get back to Kalinar. Do you, Doc? Indeed. This is the reason why I am able to comprehend you. Do you agree? Is this something? A psychic translator is what it is. As you talk, it does a scan of your brain to determine what it is that you plan to say, and then it converts the sound that is coming from you into the language that it is pre-programmed to understand. The opposite is also true. If something is said in the language that it is set on, it will communicate to your brain the meaning of the words that are being told to you. Very nice. Well, it is not perfect, but it is still better than nothing. As an additional note, I apologize if it causes you to feel uneasy. I am aware that many different races regard it to be dishonorable to wear a collar. Evil that is essential to it. Do you have any other inquiries, Doctor? In any case, I am curious about the extent to which you are able to recall. You are out here. How did you get here? Not anything overly fancy. We discovered a planet that appeared to be kind, and it was significantly further away than anything else that we had ever examined. The location was visited by a colony ship. Because Papa and I were qualified for the opportunity, and because it seemed like an amazing journey, I insisted that we sign up for it. After that, I am awoken by an alarm, and I am instructed to go into an escape pod. Therefore, I do so, without a clue as to what the issue was. To a large extent, that is all. You might have heard that from the other people, right? Take a bite out of it. There were no additional ones that I was made aware of. From what I understand, we were only able to locate you. The gaze of Nadine dipped. Oh, of course, that does not necessarily mean that you are the only person remaining. Though she didn't really believe it herself, Yitai reassured her that it was possible that you had only become separated owing to some unfortunate drifting. Do you have any means by which you can get in touch with your people? No. To ensure that I am located, the capsule transmits a signal. Nevertheless, the radio itself has a limited range. With a complete comprehension of what that meant, both of them fell silent. Only Nadine was present. Are you aware of the reason you could not wake up? With a strong desire to change the subject, the physician inquired. In my opinion, it was a little too deep for a sleep. Sorry, but no. Is there any way to determine how long you were out from the office? I'm not really parched, so I'd say it's probably less than a day. In the event that I am not aware of the rotation speed of your home world, I am sorry that does not tell me very much. Exactly. There are 24 hours in a day. Again, I am not familiar with your units. It makes perfect sense. After that, she gave a head shake to Gitpai. Get rid of it. To ask that was a foolish thing for me to do. No. Again, no. We are able to accomplish that. Permit me a moment. Do you have a unit of measurement for the speed of light? It was unclear to the physician what the human being was hoping to accomplish with that information. Yet, if it served to divert her attention, then so be it. At 7 minutes and 48 seconds, there are 3179 lines per segment. All right. Assume that there are 750. What was my height once more? 282 lines of air travel. All right. I am approximately 1.55 meters away. 1 meter is about equal to 1.7. It's true. Each line is 1.7. 300 million meters per second is the speed of light, which is equivalent to around 500 million lines per second. In other words, 750 seconds is equal to 500 ticks, and 1 tick is approximately 1.5 seconds. This means that 1 minute is equal to 40 ticks, 1 hour is equal to 2,400 TIGs, and 1 day is equal to 48,900. All right. Consequently, I would consider a day to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,700 ticks. A few seconds of Gif-Hai staring blankly into the room followed, and then the conversation resumed. Do you have a calculator that is similar to a nanometer in size that I am not seeing? I am not aware of any of them. Are you telling me that you went through all of that and computed it in your head? What is the amount of computational power that your brain possesses? To be fair, I rounded. When the doctor was at a loss for words, he produced a calculator from his pocket. I heard you say that it was 57,600. Consequently, our days are a little bit shorter. 62,000 ticks are present on a daily basis. To use a larger unit, 62 INVAs is another option. Now that we have that information, we ought to be able to determine your age as well. There are 202 days throughout one solar cycle. Oh, so take into account 1.8, but approximately 10% more additional days. I am 15 years old, so it's all right. I am around 24 cycles old at this point. Despite her best efforts, Yithe was unable to overcome her astonishment and instead just wrote down the figures. All of a sudden, the ship was shaken by a powerful explosion. Which one was that? Do we have an assault on us? As soon as the alarm went off, Gife was perplexed. If so, how? Because to the proximity of this route to the hyperlane, it is imperative that there be patrols available. Could it be? No. Hold on. To get closer to the distress signal, we decided to take a detour. What would happen if we strayed from the safe routes? It's possible that the signal has been picked up by something else as well. The situation was quite a pickle. Despite the fact that the Star Treader was not designed for combat, the few guards that were on board were just there to serve as an escort for the princess. It was obvious that the alien girl was terrified, since she was trembling. Githai was not a fighter, but that did not stop her from wanting to protect Nadine. Despite the fact that she had only known Nadine for about an inva, there was something about this creature with her meek voice and fragile form that made her want to protect her. Be not concerned. These guards are really powerful. We are not in danger here, she said, unsure of who she was attempting to persuade with her words. In spite of this, she continued to utter that sentence when she heard heavy footsteps coming from the direction of the car door.